Welcome back to Superbly Said Advanced English Vocabulary and Phrases.
Glad to be here. Today's document is a lesson from SpeakDuo, a platform for practicing English on video calls. It's titled 5 Daily Habits That Are Destroying Your IQ. And it introduces advanced vocabulary through definitions, example sentences, and practice questions.
Yeah, and a quick note for the listeners, you can go to SpeakDuo.com to meet new people from around the world who are practicing English on video calls to become more confident with their speaking abilities.
Exactly. Now, right out of the gate, this material is cleanly organized. It has really clear, accurate definitions. But jumping right into the feedback, the instructional material defines the idioms accurately, but overlooks the critical need to distinguish these phrases from similar alternatives for advanced learners. Yeah, it's a classic hurdle in language instruction, actually. I mean, providing basic literal definitions, like defining to connect the dots simply as realizing facts are related, that works perfectly for intermediate students.
Right.
But the weakness here is that advanced learners need to grasp the subtle, nuanced differences between these idioms and their common synonyms.
Because without that specific comparative context, the vocabulary just remains passively understood when reading.
Exactly, rather than actively and correctly utilized in conversation.
So the suggestion here to synthesize that observation is for the author to explicitly explain the nuanced differences between the target idiom and similar alternative expressions.
Like introducing a brief comparative framework for each phrase.
Exactly. Let's look at some concrete examples of how to actually do this. So take the phrase, to filter out.
Okay.
A learner needs to know how that differs from simply ignoring something.
Right, because they aren't exactly the same.
No, they're not. So the author could explain that filtering out implies a strategic, deliberate isolation of essential details from ambient noise. It's a very active process.
Whereas ignoring, on the other hand, can just be a passive, lazy lack of attention.
Exactly.
Expanding on that need for precision, let's look at to shortchange. Instead of just saying it means treating someone unfairly, it becomes much clearer if we contrast it with underpaying or cheating. The comparative depth comes from noting that shortchanging specifically involves inherently treating someone or something unfairly by failing to provide what they truly deserve.
Usually in a systematic way, right?
Right. It evokes the imagery of a transaction where one party is purposely left lacking.
Yeah, that's a great distinction. And returning to connect the dots, if we compare it to simply deducing or understanding, we reveal the actual mechanics of the phrase.
How so?
Well, we can explain that connecting the dots visually and conceptually implies bringing together seemingly disparate, totally unrelated pieces of information to form a cohesive realization.
Right, so it's the difference between just knowing an answer and piecing together a complex puzzle.
Exactly.
Let's apply this framework to the phrase to be flooded with. The material really needs to differentiate this from a common phrase like being overwhelmed by.
Yeah, because you can be overwhelmed by an intangible emotion like sadness or joy.
Totally. But being flooded with usually implies a massive sudden influx of tangible or informational volume. We are talking about data, emails, or support tickets.
It paints a picture of a volume so high that processing it becomes incredibly difficult.
Yes, that visual imagery is vital for retention.
What about to leave a mark? The author could contrast this with the verb to affect.
Oh, that's a good one. A temporary cold affects you for a week.
Right, but leaving a mark signifies a profoundly lasting psychological effect or a permanent impact on someone's life trajectory. It implies permanence.
Similarly, for to push through, we should compare it to the neutral verb to continue. Continuing is just maintaining a state.
Right.
Of physical exhaustion or mental difficulty and persistently acting despite an overwhelming desire to stop.
The friction is built right into the definition.
Exactly.
There is also an opportunity to clarify to catch up on. A student might confuse this with to do later.
But doing something later is just scheduling or procrastinating.
Exactly. Catching up on something specifically implies remedying a deficit. It means finally doing something you genuinely did not have adequate time to accomplish earlier, usually because you fell behind.
I noticed there are 2 bonus expressions in the lesson notes as well. For to fall apart, the author should distinguish it from the simple verb to break.
Right, because a physical object like a cup breaks.
But when a complex system or a business deal or a person's emotional state falls apart, it implies a complete cascading failure of structure. It's not just broken, it is disintegrated.
Lastly, a racing mind must be contrasted with simply thinking fast. Thinking fast can be a highly positive cognitive state during a debate or a game.
But a racing mind is inherently a distressing mental state. It describes a situation where your thoughts are moving entirely too fast and you cannot easily calm them down.
Providing these comparative frameworks instantly elevates the entire document.
It really does. Moving into the application phase of the lesson, though, the current application exercises fail to simulate the high-stakes, real-world environments where these advanced idioms are most practically utilized.
Yeah, the weakness here is glaring once you look at the prompts. The practice questions rely heavily on casual, everyday scenarios.
Right, they ask the learner to talk about watching detective movies or painting a picture.
Or buying new books. These informal contexts do not adequately prepare advanced learners to deploy the vocabulary in professional, academic, or high-level evaluative settings.
Which is typically where mastering such nuanced phrasing provides the actual return on investment for the learner.
Exactly. So the actionable fix is to elevate the practice sections by demonstrating the use of the phrases in rigorous professional dialogues or formal academic speaking scenarios like an English proficiency exam.
Let's explore concrete examples of how to rewrite the prompts for every single phrase. Instead of asking about a TV show, the practice for "to push through" could represent a challenging conversation with a boss.
Okay, give me an example.
For instance, a sentence like, "Despite the complex bureaucratic regulations blocking the merger, our legal team had to push through the red tape to achieve our desired business outcome."
See, that instantly sounds more valuable to an adult learner. Let's tackle "to connect the dots." The practice could be framed as an IELTS Speaking Part 2 response, where the learner must describe a time they solved a complex problem.
Oh, perfect.
They could say, "During my engineering internship, the system kept failing unpredictably. I finally managed to connect the dots between the fluctuating server temperatures and the software glitches to resolve a highly complex technical issue."
That is exactly what an examiner is looking for. For "to filter out," let's frame it as a dialogue between work colleagues analyzing data.
Okay.
An example sentence could be, "When analyzing the competitor's financial reports, it's crucial to filter out the marketing jargon to strategically isolate the essential project details."
Let's place "to be flooded with" in a corporate context as well. A manager giving a quarterly update might say, "Following the unexpected viral product launch, our customer service department was flooded with inquiries, receiving such a massive volume of emails that it became extremely difficult to process."
Nice. How about "to leave a mark"? An IELTS Part 2 prompt could ask the candidate to describe an influential figure in their life.
Right.
The response could be, "My university thesis advisor truly left a mark on me. Her rigorous approach to research ultimately had a profoundly lasting psychological effect on my entire career path."
For "to catch up on," we can elevate the scenario to a specialized academic or professional field. A colleague returning to the office might mention, "After returning from my 6-month sabbatical, I spent the entire weekend trying to catch up on the most recent theoretical developments within our highly specialized academic field."
Taking a look at to shortchange, a conversation with a boss about resource allocation is the perfect setting. A department head could argue, "If we continually reduce the budget for research and development, we inherently shortchange our engineering team, treating them unfairly by failing to provide the funding they truly need to innovate."
For our first bonus expression, "to fall apart," we could simulate a high-stakes project review or a post-mortem meeting. The project lead could state, "Due to the lack of adequate stress testing, the entire software infrastructure began to fall apart during the final deployment phase."
And finally, for a racing mind, an IELTS candidate could describe a challenging academic phase they had to overcome. "The week before my final medical board exams, I experienced a racing mind every night, a distressing mental state where my thoughts about the syllabus were moving so fast I couldn't easily calm down."
Utilizing these elevated examples provides a much stronger, much more realistic foundation for the learner.
It really does.
So looking at the culmination of the document, the conclusion of the lesson, relies on unstructured breakout sessions rather than a targeted objective assessment of the learner's retention.
Yeah, after presenting 9 complex expressions, the document simply ends with a slide that says breakout room 4, and then a bye-bye slide.
Right.
The weakness is the distinct lack of a structured, rigorous mechanism at the end of the lesson for learners to actively verify their comprehension of the specific definitions and nuances we just discussed. A breakout room is great for fluency, but it doesn't objectively test accuracy.
The most effective suggestion here is to implement a comprehensive multiple-choice quiz at the very end of the material. This quest should reinforce the vocabulary by requiring learners to differentiate the correct definitions from highly specific, similar-sounding distractors.
And the instructor can encourage learners to pause, analyze the options, and think critically before answering.
Exactly. Let's actually demonstrate the pedagogical value of this by conducting this exact quiz right now, utilizing the highly specific options that the author could include to solve this problem.
Sounds good. We will announce the options as Option A, Option B, and Option C, repeating the relevant phrase to remind everyone what they're trying to define.
This will perfectly illustrate how to challenge an advanced learner. Let's begin. Question 1. What does it mean to connect the dots in a particular situation? Option A. To successfully resolve a highly complex technical issue by utilizing advanced analytical software. Option B. To finally realize that 2 or more separate facts or events are fundamentally related to each other. Option C. To meticulously arrange disjointed pieces of project data into a clear and visually appealing format. Feel free to pause the show here if you need to think about the answer for to connect the dots.
The correct answer for to connect the dots is Option B. To finally realize that 2 or more separate facts or events are fundamentally related to each other. This directly tests the nuance we discussed earlier. You can see how Option A is a clever distractor because it references our IELTS example where the engineering intern had to connect the dots to resolve a highly complex technical issue. But the definition itself is Option B.
Question 2. Which of the following best defines the phrasal verb to filter out? Option A. To gradually decrease the overall volume of background conversations in a bustling office environment. Option B. To strategically isolate essential project details from highly confidential internal corporate documents. Option C. To deliberately ignore or permanently remove unwanted information, ambient noise, or distractions. Feel free to pause the show here if you need to think about the answer for to filter out.
Right, so the correct answer for to filter out is Option C, to deliberately ignore or permanently remove unwanted information, ambient noise, or distractions. Notice how Option B tries to trick the learner by using the context of our professional dialogue example, where colleagues had to filter out the marketing jargon to focus on essential project details.
Exactly. All right, question 3. What occurs when someone is flooded with something? Option A. They receive such a massive volume of something that it becomes extremely difficult to handle or process. Option B. They rapidly consume a significant amount of digital media without taking necessary breaks for rest. Or Option C. They suddenly experience an overwhelming surge of unexpected motivation during a challenging task. Feel free to pause here if you need to think about the answer for being flooded with something.
The correct answer for being flooded with is Option A. They receive such a massive volume of something that it becomes extremely difficult to handle or process. Option C tests if the learner remembers that this phrase is about tangible volume, not just an emotional surge. This links right back to the example of the manager whose department was flooded with inquiries after the product launch.
Spot on. Question 4. If an experience is said to leave a mark, what does this signify? Option A. To deliberately damage the pristine surface of a highly valuable and historically significant artifact. Option B. To formally establish a completely new and incredibly strict set of rules within an organization. Option C. To ultimately have a profoundly lasting psychological effect or significant impact on someone's life. Feel free to pause here if you need to think about the answer for to leave a mark.
The correct answer for to leave a mark is Option C, to ultimately have a profoundly lasting psychological effect or significant impact on someone's life. Option A is the literal physical definition, which tests if the learner understands the metaphorical application.
This reinforces our IELTS example where the university thesis advisor was said to leave a mark on the student's career path.
Moving on to question 5. How is the expression to push through best described according to the lesson? Option A, to forcefully bypass a series of complex bureaucratic regulations to achieve a desired business outcome. Option B, to persistently continue doing something incredibly difficult or exhausting even when you want to stop. Option C, to aggressively assert your personal opinions over others during a highly contentious board meeting. Feel free to pause here if you need to think about the answer for to push through.
The correct answer for to push through is option B, to persistently continue doing something incredibly difficult or exhausting even when you want to stop. Again, option A pulls from the context of our corporate example where the legal team had to push through the exhausting red tape. This ensures the learner is separating the definition from the scenario.
Question 6. What does a person do when they try to catch up on something? Option A. They finally do something they genuinely did not have adequate time to accomplish or complete earlier. Option B. They quickly learn all the most recent theoretical developments within a highly specialized academic field. Option C. They frantically accelerate their current working pace in order to surpass their closest professional rivals. Feel free to pause the show here if you need to think about the answer for to catch up on.
The correct answer for to catch up on is option A. They finally do something they genuinely did not have adequate time to accomplish or complete earlier. This directly connects to our scenario of the colleague returning from a sabbatical who needed to catch up on the theoretical developments they simply did not have time to review.
Right. Question 7. If you shortchange someone or something, what are you doing? Option A. You purposely manipulate a financial transaction in order to retain a small amount of unexpected profit. Option B. You treat someone or something inherently unfairly by failing to provide what they truly deserve or need. Option C. You abruptly terminate a promising professional relationship due to a minor and easily resolvable dispute. Feel free to pause here if you need to think about the answer for shortchange.
The correct answer for shortchange is option B. You treat someone or something inherently unfairly by failing to provide what they truly deserve or need. Option A is a brilliant distractor because it relies on the literal interpretation of the word change in a financial sense. This reminds us of our budget allocation example, where reducing funds would shortchange the engineering team.
And our final question, question 8. Which of the following describes experiencing a racing mind? Option A, a unique psychological condition where you effortlessly generate highly innovative and creative concepts. Option B, a temporary cognitive phase characterized by extremely sharp focus and unparalleled problem-solving skill. Option C, a distressing mental state where your thoughts are moving very fast and you cannot easily calm them down. Feel free to pause here if you need to think about the answer for a racing mind.
The correct answer for a racing mind is option C, a distressing mental state where your thoughts are moving very fast and you cannot easily calm them down. Options A and B test the learner's ability to differentiate between the negative connotation of a racing mind and the positive connotation of thinking fast. This brings us perfectly back to our final academic example, where the candidate experienced a racing mind before their medical board exams.
Implementing this type of rigorous assessment forces the learner to truly interact with the material.
It absolutely does, and it transforms the document from a simple vocabulary list into a comprehensive learning module.
To quickly recap the 3 main takeaways from our review today. First, ensure you add comparative nuances to the definitions, so advanced learners understand exactly how these idioms differ from basic synonyms. Second, elevate the practice scenarios to simulate high-stakes professional environments and IELTS speaking frameworks rather than casual everyday situations.
And finally, implement a rigorous multiple-choice assessment at the end of the material to objectively verify comprehension and challenge the learners.
We warmly invite you to implement these actionable suggestions and submit your revised work back to us for further feedback.